Hello, this is a video about 3 things that all leaders make mistakes with and how that's exploited. Now, this is also because of how all individuals are making mistakes with these 3 things. So, for example, in relationship to things that are most critical, like black rights, as distinctly from white rights, as forced distinctly by a breaching method. So if you don't want to refer to that as a predicate acts delivery system method, you're going to have lies and physical delusions manifest with your defenses of your convictions and opinions towards such, which are also dishonest. Because so it is that simple. That is why where and how we are quality of fact treatment nature. There are locations, being all locations, sickly distinctly, sickly non-distinctly, are roles with that breaching method leveraged against each quality of fact treatment nature. Forced to roles that you couldn't defend and keep going forward with life, with positive and negative tied to all our fact treatments, tied to our identities of the ground locations, the branches of government. It's tied to when they say they make opinions and convictions regarding the credibility of the branches of government, as if it's A or B. And we have hundreds of nations shared sick like this. So interbranch, for example, they have where they are forced to have their positions conceived as jobs, like jobs. They have the hierarchy, criminally foreign influenced. They have individually grouped and together they're sick. So they have that narrative where they debate with their bosses or whatever. And that's what it is, the standard. And then they blame other, in other words. There are abridged qualities of the Constitution, surface values that are relationship to its value / value progression simultaneously, their value, outside of courts. So when there was a breaching method entrenched here since before our founding parents were born, they had slavery sickly distinctly in the North and in the South. It wasn't all about cotton. It wasn't all about the all juxtaposed motivations, nature's interests, needs, as roles with that to blame it on other things other than themselves, including the people part of it. And so this has been maintained effectively worse than obfuscated. So we have the only people allowed to use voices outside of courts, recorded in collusion with them in cases already, with all that leads up to cases, because there already were locations, roles with that breaching method that maintain that to maintain them to hide. The roles with sequence shifts, finite lies, active lies, progressive lies, identity theft / frauds, specifically to make them self-value, how all locations have leveraged against each individual of correlation nature, and its simultaneously inherent active and progressive means to prevent us free speech. The only black leaders that are allowed to speak, the only white charged leaders, and all differences are employed in collusion. It's not by accident they have types of rights, groups and opinions and theories. People invested in defenses of time treatments, what they perceive with logic, but recorded in collusion against how mandated law is prevented. So another thing, the second thing, that's the first thing is that everyone ignores and pretends not to realize and doesn't realize the breaching method that employed sick things like slavery in North and South. And that breaching method was against everyone. Of course, it hurt people more than others. That's how it employed people as a state, as all locations, states, and areas, criminally foreign influence, needing to react to negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that they didn't cause, but blaming it, doing that as fact-cheating nature not capable of doing it correctly any longer, and then defending that. And in defenses of that, as of defenses of criminally foreign influence premises treatments, it's in defenses of physical delusion, sequence shifts, identity thefts, frauds, roles. So we don't have any individual who's going to speak properly for individual identity of volume, active identity of volume, which is grouped, simultaneous, and progressive. Like, for example, what the pathology of infrastructure has forced with slavery north and south. It was designed, it was forced with that fact-cheating nature slavery of everyone, including our founding parents, who did not entrench that here. And see, they didn't have free speech because all locations, states, and areas were manifest as styles of premises treatment, styles of positive negative treatment, styles of sequence treatment, styles of identity treatments, styles of progressive value treatments. So that can't defend themselves and afford the logic and quality of fact-cheating nature necessary to counter that breaching organized crime method, worse than war crimes, but simple method. Fake science /S. Fake identities of integrity. Narratives with the perfect world and how it's forsaken. Again, blaming other things, others, and themselves for it, and valuing that having been. So there are only 3 branches of government. And they're shared with hundreds of nations at once, there and here, shared policing of everything that requires, where they have what they call peaceful means to counter negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. They self-value that originally still in collusion here and there with what is tall locations further and further on off each age and nature of campus, each age and nature of database relationships simultaneously. They use crime methods here and there in collusion, pretending people have conspiracy theories so they can fabricate conversations with us. It is not by accident when there are problems with police, between the police and people, that they leave out how there are other identities of the law that have already been involved, also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones originally still, and hundreds of nations, and military, all that goes with that. And worse than that, originally still, that bonded all those motivations, natures, needs, and methods of liars, and of breaching screens by the one breaching method. So we have black and white leaders that need to have fights between people, while they are simultaneously pretending that was about and is about what it is not about. Even when they're telling the truth, they're attaching lies and physical delusions. They're blaming on other things, others themselves, dishonestly. And they're preventing free speech and mandated law. That's the second reason that the leaders, black and white leaders, fail black rights. They fail everyone's rights. They fail our human species identity of life, fail integrity, while pretending other. They already did and pretend other. That maintains manifest styles of natures as criminal and ceaseless nature needing to pretend other. Where our nature is good, but originally still the value nature systems were employed, not just physically employed. There are identity employed, fact-cheating nature styles employed, breaching screens, breaching tools, breaching weapons, worse. So the first reason is because they're preventing us. They're lying and making allegations against anyone who says things like a breaching method was the cause of slavery. For example, one of the crime methods black and white leaders use together to pretend to be against such while furthering it, they say, well, our founders had slaves. Our founders owned slaves. First of all, they weren't alive. Second of all, the database relationships, all the locations, areas, states, sciences, they were recorded with physical delusions and with criminal foreign influences. Maintain self-value. So that's everything is demonstrating them recorded in state as a state/S, as an identity of value, negative value nature progression that was needing to react to it as fact treatment nature. And it was further and further self-valuing, abridged campuses, abridged sciences, abridged private database relationships against everyone, and as roles with pretending other. This is from off campuses having been maintained, influenced. It already was, so that was maintained self-value. When it happens, it is increasingly maintained from off campuses of each age and nature, from off all locations, criminal foreign influences, and uses of them. So there are a whole bunch of people associated with Trinity College and with Central Connecticut State University that are involved with former direct people that are involved with federal criminals and other people's nations, with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin and with his lawyer Robert Chevalier, and with a whole bunch of federal criminals tied to them in related cases and in related depositions, and with identity of the ground locations they have recorded collusion with the criminal uses of, as what is involved with the vertical and horizontal database organized crime method and relationship/S that was forced to everyone, where we didn't have free speech and you're forced to pretend other. By that breaching method that was entrenched here since before our founding parents were born. So, those are three reasons why, and it's also because they're preventing mandated law. Mandated law, that's the second reason. The first reason is because they're preventing the breaching method from being subject. And they're making allegations against whoever does that. And they're preventing free speech by attaching us to fake audio and video, fake locations, valuing us and people of each age and nature attached to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, fake sequence relationships to other people, as the roles with the vertical and horizontal database relationships. So that's the third reason that your black and white leaders fail you, humanity, everyone. Sickly, distinctly, if you're black or if you're white, they're going to fail you and pretend they're for you. Now, they came through sick campuses and sciences. That's their excuse if they had one legitimately. And they would say, oh, that's rhetoric and stuff like that. But they have been preventing mandated law. That's the second reason. The first being, again, they preventing the short words to talk about the breaching organized crime method, worse than war crimes method, that forced slavery, that was standing there lying pretense about justice, as standing criminal and seditious natures. The second reason is because they're in the furtherance of preventing mandated law, and having prevented mandated law, and keeping that the outcome while they pretend other and make allegations against whoever says this. Some of the allegations they make are pretending people are racist. These are cliques where we have interbranch, white and black, male and female. They use those differences. They already use them speaking for their jobs and speaking for the law, again with criminal foreign influences, with physical delusions, as victims, but as victim predators. So the second reason that they are so bad whenever they speak or pretend to be about you, exploited areas, exploited people, is because they're preventing mandated law, and they already have prevented mandated law. And they've been lying to themselves and others, and with physical delusions. No, because they have aggressions. They're pretending to be against aggressions while they're in this rat trap too, where everyone speaks through other people and they're all rats, and then they call you a rat for doing it and then it makes it look like you knew them. Investigations, investigators, and vetting identities. A whole bunch of other nations. The way they're manifest together here, they're shared. That is used by a breaching method to employ them to collusion with what really most furthers the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones. But you have to follow mandated law outside of courts, outside of police locations, and outside of the context where people are using passions and emotions dishonestly and committing crimes. See, we have the word/value crimes already used criminal by all the people involved with justice. They already used all words criminally, including justice, which is only anything discernible as negative value nature and demonstration of what it is. Everything that will only stay more and more positive is one identity of volume that we share. That all identities of volume share as themselves. Sharing its identity of relationship to itself and sharing the value of that which is only increasing. Now you could call that theory, but you have to follow mandated law and you can't do that. Now these are also people that are World Trade Center attack. World Trade Center, Washington, D.C. rolls with dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court alone, with syntax, organized crime acts, and uses of them from those locations. Simultaneously, dozens of people associated with Hartford courts and with other courts in Connecticut, intercities. There are also criminally foreign influence with the same vertical and horizontal organized crime method. So that's another reason we have worse than criminal incompetence with what we're speaking for American history. Knows the most about it, most knowledge about American history, but they're getting over on correlation nature. They're stealing their roles with the theft of James Madison's voice. Soul, identity. Their roles with the theft of George Washington. George Washington cannot tell a lie. Then he had to come here to Connecticut, CT. He didn't say that's why it was a cipher, but he didn't have free speech. If he had free speech, then it was his fault. Then slavery was here. Slavery had been entrenched here since before he was even born. James Madison came up with the means for them to do what no one thought fathomable. Because it wasn't fathomable, in many ways it didn't work. In many ways, the only reason America is a success is because of the damage control Native Americans did. And because everyone uses fact treatment, nature premises styles, identity treatment styles, convictions, opinions that can't defend themselves without blaming on other things other than themselves, while defining their identities through contrast. They can't define their identities in relation to correlation nature. Our leaders, whether they are black or white, they share fake sides of opinions on prejudice, uses of words like prejudice, racism, and fake alternatives in collusion as an identity of negative value nature progression as a trinity, preventing free speech, valuing it having been prevented originally still. Free speech didn't speak for American history, which is what is recorded when they talk about Jim Crow laws, when they talk about how they agree to stay in the rat trap that causes negative value nature progressions, that is incapable of acts and natures. incapable of defending itself and affording American history told properly by themselves or anyone else. They have to value her, that individual of correlation nature, because they are reliant upon so many criminal insidious natures of positive and negative, finite, active, and progressive, fact treatments, truth treatments, identity treatments. Again, they can't defend that and us at the same time. So also, it is, they also prevent us from demonstrating how they are victims. And they use the crime method of pretending everything should be solved in courts and or through legislation and or through the police. The police are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with other police forms. Wethersfield Police is involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. A whole bunch of Wethersfield Police, retired and standing police chiefs associated with my town's standing police chief, further involved with child campuses in my town. Now they're in the background. They've been using crime methods of pretending I had conversations with what I reported, which is only part of what is actually recorded, that they are pretending others recorded. Because these are various natures of courts and police, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, other nations' police, and worse, all juxtaposed together. They have a whole bunch of names of people from my town that I don't even know. And I only know of and through this. Like there are a whole bunch of people tied to a Charlie Bowes and people in his family. I don't know Charlie Bowes. I don't know his sister. Someone who claimed to be his sister sought me out for confessed, demonstrated, recorded, rolls with this. With people all along Church Street in Old Wethersfield. Take a right on the house on the corner of it. Church Street and Main Street. Involved with the people, with the former director of the FBI, other agencies and family members and stuff like that. They also have fake conversations with me about agencies. So if they look in the databases, they're going to say, oh, this person made conspiracy theories about the government and things like that. They also have lawyers like Trantolo making lies about people with physical delusions, too. Pretending people make conspiracy theories, making overall allegations, overall convictions, summary judgments. Summary judgment use a Peruta family. I don't know. They sought me out to confess, record, and demonstrate their roles with the people like a Kerr family, an Officer Jerry Miller. They never used the name, either of those people's names. I don't know them like I don't know them. But those people sought me out to confess. Like there's an Officer Jerry Miller who's further involved with Facebook pages, interbranch, intercampuses, and wire crime methods and acts with Wethersfield Police Department. And with Wethersfield schools, with a principal child offender school. These are the same ones that are involved with World Trade Center in Washington, D.C. So there are a whole bunch of people at Trinity College associated with Oliveri, Eric Oliveri, Craig Oliveri. I never had a conversation with Craig Oliveri in my life. I never had anything to do with him. Eric Oliveri, they put him in a class that is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with vertical and horizontal database organized crime. That agencies are involved with, associated with him. People in military also. People dealing with UPS, shipping people, involved with him and them, and people tied to him with confessed and recorded, involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime with mailing and shipping. Now these are also people all the way from Church Street in Old Wethersfield in that house in the corner. And like the Hanson house, Bruce Hanson recorded, confirmed the roles with this. In other words, all the way from there in Wethersfield, Connecticut, all the way to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain are people involved with that street, with various natures of predicate acts, natures of organized crime acts, and natures of organized crime and uses of it. Roles with AT&T with these people, like a Chris Walters. Also with them, with the people with, they're involved with the Old Town Cafe, with people with the houses on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, and the house on the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield. that is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Wethersfield Police. A whole bunch of people with the name Sullivan recorded, confessed, demonstrated involved with forging names, switching names, used for their roles where they use interbranch locations to fabricate audio and video originally and still. To pretend to be against things like perjury, but they're perjury racketeering natures. They're fabricating audio and video. They're lying about their perception of people. That is what is recorded, but you have to follow mandated law to have this realized. WFSB also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that they attached me and my family and other people of each age and nature on and off campuses to fabricated words, fake audio and video. And they broadcast that for the same people involved with this now, and in the past when they did this, involved as people that were involved with this when I was a kid, attaching me to fake conversations with themselves, interbranch family members. So we have recorded effective, easy, remote uses of the fact, treatment, natures, and styles, identities of jobs, titles, opinion, natures, A through Z, people A through Z. So we have exploited areas that have juxtaposed natures of organized crime against them by the one method that is against all areas that have the same thing. Recorded effectively, maintained, self-valued, and how maintained, self-valued, juxtaposed natures of organized crime with each age of fact-keeping nature. Uses of all the programs, therefore. Uses of everyone speaking through other people. You have to discern the crime methods that are self-valued by our highest identities of the law. Originally still victim predators. They couldn't defend themselves, their convictions, and discern what American history is actually about. They need people fighting and pretending passions and emotions and then defending that like, oh, our founders owned slaves. If there were some sick founders that were really bad people, even if there were, they were forced to be that. That's like blaming one guy. And first of all, this is not in relationship to just cotton. That's with the narrative and the counters to the counters. The counters were employed. They put everyone only capable of fighting and hurting with each other, blamed the real cause of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, other things, others, themselves. All private, tied to the interbranch, criminally involved with a whole bunch of other nations. Again, with the witness protection program also, not just overt criminal enterprises as they have them grouped, but we're also going to discern how they've been grouping them wrong. They've been countering negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures like predicate acts. Criminal and seditious natures, wrongdoers, wrongly. So there are also a whole bunch of names that are strangers that sought me out to and everyone speaking to other, make confessions, demonstration, recorded roles with this. Dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court, interbranch, from Wethersfield interbranch, also intercampuses. Dozens of people from on and off the state judicial branch offices, roles with predicate acts with Wethersfield Police Department, a whole bunch of police and the Wethersfield Police Chief and their family members. On and off the state judicial branches, like with Wethersfield Police, there's a Stephen Stocco and a Maria Vizino who sought me out for these confessions roles with this, for their roles with wire crime action methods, with police and courts, as people involved with New Britain Superior Court that are involved with interbranch programs with kids and policing and training policing, where they have involvements also with medical offenders with kids that are crimes with even child sexual offenders. Further involved with the principal child offenders campus, I recorded them involved with before that. They hid that by fabricating audio and video, forging and switching names interbranch distinctly. The New Britain Superior Court has dozens of people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime and crime acts and methods with locations that they have been hiding per their crime methods on their location, the Britain Superior Court, and with the principal child offender. Now, these are the people also with school resource officers. Mendez police family, also intercities, involved with vertical and horizontal database organized crime acts. Now, these are also people like associated with former director of the FBI's co-defendants, like and their family member, like a Don LeConte, is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts with people on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, right around the corner from there, and right around the corner from there. Now, these are also people with the Webb House, which they changed the name of to the Webb Stevens House, or Webb Stevens Museum. And that's where George Washington had to come to meet the French general and leave entrenched in the North America slavery. Now, what hid that and puts the narrative of North and South is pretending other, by pretending to be against prejudice and racism. Because while they are simultaneously preventing mandated law, while they are simultaneously preventing quality of fact, cheaping nature capable of speaking for black rights without hurting them. Not capable of speaking for white, for whatever you call yourself. See, they're starting fights because we have a little minority interbranch that is black and white. They're abused in other words, they can't defend their fact treatments, their fact treatment nature styles, their actually recorded natures, criminal and ceaseless nature, self-value. Without self-valuing, only having been from those locations, life progressions deeper and deeper, right back to all locations, further and further, victim predators. And where and how the propagated fact treatment, convictions, opinions, styles of fact treatment, that's what was propagated. That's that's exploited. So they have people only fighting to make fights with people when we ask to have mandated law followed. Then they want to, it is clear as day. In other words. They also have, if you pretend to be, if you are nice, they'll exploit you if you're being nice, distinctly and non-distinctly, sickly. And if you do things that are not that nice, but they're not illegal, they'll exploit you sickly, distinctly, and non-distinctly. The whole time pretending sick, that's their styles of lie they're only defending. Like I was kind of rude to a, what's his name? Ludacris, the rapper. But he's recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with people associated with, I don't know if he knows it, I'm not saying he's formally involved with them, but there are a whole bunch of people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his lawyer, and with like a DeMora family. Eric Oliveri, Craig Oliveri, Joshua Stryker. I never had a conversation with Joshua. I never had anything to do with Joshua Stryker in my life. These are people on and off the state judicial branch offices, on and off Trinity College through time involved with predicate acts, with falsified police reports, fabricating audio and video rolls with mail crimes, wire crimes, various natures of mail crimes, not just UPS. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by UPS, involved with that. So these were confessions made to me before I went there to have that confirmed. And to figure this out, because this is through time a vertical and horizontal database organized crime method. There's a whole bunch of bad things at once. But there are certain things it is always that all share self-value, like sequence shifts, like identity thefts and frauds roles, like uses of people who are offensively pretending to be for black rights, but it is recorded that their roles are used as tools, weapons, worse, breaching screens, used to prevent mandated law and demonstration to prevent the quality of fact treatment nature necessary immediately to counter worse than lack of reliefs, where and how there were all bonded breaching method employed, torture, and way worse methods, acts, and natures against each location, especially those most forsaken. And where everyone was blaming other things other than themselves for all that negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and nature, they already made them self-valued. They already had the people that work with the interbranch kept needing to hide the same life progressions with them. The people involved with the prisons of the interbranch and the foreign with them. I have to keep mentioning the foreign because they're ducking behind that's how their roles with another nature of organized crime. We're going to see that they have legalized roles with such, where they've been using the right to lie, though, in ways they don't have the right to lie. This is really how and why science never spoke for any area, but pretended others simultaneously on a mass scale. So the news media also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they'll simultaneously pretend other. But they pretend to be against prejudice and racism. But they know they're using that because they know they don't follow mandated law, and they have criminal readings of statutes. They work with private, retired, and standing interbranch that have already been roles, self-valued, with fabricating audio and video, then hiding from the people's means to just tell that. They make mistakes in cases they should know a second someone can explain that to them. But they've been using time, always too fast, too slow, to steal people's identities as roles with that. They're by way worse. They're kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite criminal uses of each age of fact-achieving nature. That's what's actually recorded. The same people pretending to be against such. That's why we have types of experts in relationship to types of crimes that stay manifest. The people involved with the studies of that are also recorded and kept criminally foreign influence roles with that. You have to understand what and how, like, for example, ludicrous, please do what's right and follow mandated law for Trinity College. They have a dean. They have various natures of courts, judges. They have black and white female judges involved with the principal child offenders campus in my town. And they have intercities connected crime acts, confessions, regardless if they're telling the truth or not. That's evidence, how they approach me with a confessions pattern, with strangers. Investigations, investigators, and vetting identities are kept criminally foreign influenced. If you can't see that science that never spoke for areas, never spoke for black, don't stay that way. I mean, you better learn to see it, because they have you too now. These news media, I've been asking for a long time. Respond. Interbranch, they forge names, switch names. They're wasting my time. They wouldn't give me anything on paper since I was a kid. They're tied to how they make confessions about and demonstrations and crime acts while they're pretending other. Strangers. That only know in those contexts like that. It shows how they've been using hiding lie progressions offensively, how they've been kept needing to. People I never had conversations with, like a Joshua Julian. Also involved with the people at Trinity College, involved further intercities with the on-off campuses locations, further involved with the wire crimes active with that campus. Then and now, leading up to it, they have other retired and standing roles with it, not just that principal child offender. Now they're being close to that. Those roles are not even as bad as the former director's roles, and his co-defendants, and leading up to relevant cases in contexts like the World Trade Center attack. They have you all making allegations against people. What makes it unfathomable? When did they have integrity? Follow mandated law. Oh, we don't understand what you're talking about, though. Follow mandated law about the specific rape threats, about the specific wire crime sequence shifts. The rape threats are passion crimes that were involved with the sequence shifts, because these are Hartford courts. Dozens of various people from various natures of Hartford courts, on off the state judicial branch offices. New Britain courts that were involved with locations crimes leading up to the World Trade Center attack from Connecticut, as their roles interstates with that, and worse than just internations. So they also name, stack, and pretend that people make conspiracy theories, pretend everyone's saying that all other people are evil and good and bad. They're sick. They're with physical delusions. They're starting fights. Then they're trying to use that as evidence. They're saying, oh, see, you're calling us bad people. You admitted you're bad. So I know there is good in everyone. So have someone respond for the judges and for the prosecutors involved with organized crime that Ludacris is involved with CNN. I believe it was on CNN or Fox News or whatever. And with Trinity College. Because I need to know the name of the woman associated with Heather Hansen and with this Charlie Bowes. And what the name of his sister is, a woman who said she's his sister, associated with this Chris Walters. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated there's prosecutors and judges and people associated with Washington, D.C., and people that also make confessions about how it's tied to World Trade Center, associated with him and his mother. And with the people with on-off Trinity College and on-off CCSU roll with predicate acts with them. Identity thefts, fraud, sequence shifts with them. Roles with falsified police reports, police from Wethersfield Police on and off their location, attaching little kids to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, fake sequence relationships through time, every once in a while. So they make fact cheaping nature racketeering, maintain self-value by people as victims needing to forget about everyone speaking crazy, the same people that are pretending they're not normal. And while simultaneously they've been pretending me and others of each age to fake locations, fake words with people that we never had words with. They've been fabricating things into databases. This is a vertical and horizontal database organized crime method maintained by one worse. To maintain them used remotely, needed to hide live progressions. They have investigators vetting identity investigations recorded involved with coaching the houses in my area right now as victims. They need, because I already caught them off interbranch locations and on off those locations. But you have to follow mandated law outside of courts. See, courts that entertain things like slavery, they're criminally foreign influenced. They're breaching tools, breaching screens, breaching weapons, and worse. So there are only three branches of government. They are not going to speak for themselves honestly. They are not going to take 9/11 reports, even though it's tied to the same ones involved with child abuses. We have prosecutors, their kids. We have interbranch families, how they have their kids involved with this. This is self-valued, only having been since before our founding parents were born. So follow mandated law for your leaders. Fake. It's not an allegation. That's dealing with the actually recorded.